I find myself wondering about humanity. Their attitude towards my sister's gift is so strange. Why do they fear the sunless lands? It is as natural to die as it is to be born, but they fear her, dread her. Feebly, they attempt to placate her. They do not love her. Many thousands of years ago, I heard a song in a dream, a mortal song that celebrated her gift. I still remember it. Death is before me today, like the recovery of a sick man, like going forth into a garden after sickness. Death is before me today, like the odor of myrrh, like sitting under a sail in a good wind. Death is before me today, like the course of a stream, like the return of a man from the war galley to his house. Death is before me today, like the home that a man longs to see after years spent as a captive. That forgotten poet understood her gifts. My sister has a function to perform, even as do I. The endless have their responsibilities. I have responsibilities. I walk by her side and the darkness lifts from my soul. I walk with her, and I hear the gentle beating of mighty wings. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of 7 of our Endless Deep Dive. Today we are going over Death of the Endless, the most misunderstood of all of the Endless in terms of how we perceive this idea. If you're new here, please stick around as we will be discussing the other 5 of the Endless in the next few weeks. If you have come from the Destiny of the Endless video, thank you for coming back, and I hope you stay around, and I hope you stick around for the rest of the series. But with all that being said, let's get into Death of the Endless. Now, to start off, what is the Sandman and who are the Endless? The Sandman is a series written by Neil Gaiman that discusses Dream, but not only him, his family members, the Endless. The Endless are more than godlike beings who have existed way before time and will exist far after it is completely and utterly destroyed. They are personifications of their own names, being of course Destiny, Death, Dream, Destruction, Desire, Despair, and Delirium. But today, of course, we will be discussing oldest of the sisters, Death of the Endless. Now, what do you think of when you think of death? You think of probably a skeleton in a black robe with a scythe who is just going to reap your soul and take you wherever you need to be. But Neil Gaiman decided to flip the script on what we would imagine a death to be. And I think it works so well. As, the first volume, we are told that death is this very terrible person. We are given this very fear about death. But then we see her in The Sound of Her Wings, issue 7, where we are shown this completely out of left field version of death. And this was very intentional, as Neil Gaiman wanted to depict a death that he would want to see when he died. And he succeeded 100%, because who we are shown is a 1980s style goth girl. I think is the only way I can describe her. She wears all black makeup, big shaggy mane of black hair with a silver ankh around her neck, and with a very different personality. She's a very bubbly, kind person. She is the person who I think we all hoped would come to us at the end. A person who understands, a person who is willing to talk to us, a person who is willing to just sit there and answer every single question we have about the ending. And again, that's how Neil Gaiman described her. He wanted a death that he would want to take him. And we are shown that. But her many appearances, we are shown that death is the kindest of the Endless, that she is like an older sister, the person who is going to be rash with us, who is going to, of course, be very judgmental and very much the person that she is. She's going to be that older sister type character where she against the norms that her family sets, but also wants to help them out whenever she can, as she understands more about humanity than any of the other Endless. And that's because she didn't always start out as the bubbly goth girl personality that we know today. Actually, she started quite differently, as originally she hated her job. She originally despised taking people's lives. Actually, at some point, she stopped taking them all entirely, the world went out of whack and, well, things stopped dying. As again, death is not the god of death, she is not the Grim Reaper, she is the literal concept of death. She is what happens when we go. She is the blackness at the end of time. She is the end. She will be the one at the end of time to put the chairs on the table, to turn the lights out, and to lock the universe behind her. Beginning, she didn't like her job, but one day, who knows when, she sat down with a little girl who she was about to take, and that little girl asked her one simple question: how would you like it? And ever since then, Death has been a bubbly personality who loves life and who can appreciate it. Hell, even in the novel, it is speculated that Death, every 100 years, decides to live for one day. At the end of 24 hours, she will take herself to that she can, and I quote from Seasons of Mist, that one day in every century, Death takes on mortal flesh. To better comprehend what the lives she takes must feel like, to taste the bitter tang of mortality, that this is the price she must pay for being the divider of the living from all that has gone before to all that must come after. He brews on this tale but has never questioned her about its truth. Perhaps he fears that she would answer him. And to even all of the Endless, what she does is very strange, as most of the Endless stick to themselves. They're very much to themselves. They don't like people. They don't like talking to others. It's even a funny statement to call the Endless a family, as they barely meet with each other. But Death is the only one shown to meet with everyone. He's the most connected to Dream as a sibling, even one of the only members of the Endless to be shown in every single volume of the series. She has a huge impact, not only on the series itself, but on Dream as a character. As the first time we meet Death, she explains to Dream that what they do isn't a job, it isn't a task, it's a responsibility. And in the overarching series, she is shown to have very much correlation with how the series is meant to play out. As the series is meant to show our choices in life, our choices in death, our choices in general. And Death shows us our choices in life and our choices in death, as we are shown multiple characters throughout the run of the Sandman who choose life or death. Now, even though we don't get a choice of whether we can live or die, what Neil shows us with Death as a character is that even though, yes, we don't have a choice in life and death, yes, sadly we cannot bargain with death, we can go into the unknown having this sense of calmness, with having this sense of acceptance that we know that someone who we meet on the other side will be there for us, that they will have our back, that they will be able to answer every question we have. And I think the funny thing is we never realize that we meet Death twice in our life. Of course, you might realize that, yes, we'll meet her at the end, but not a lot of people realize that we meet her at the beginning. At the beginning of our life, we meet her. At the end, we see her again. Death also has two miniseries, Time of Your Life and The High Cost of Living. There's also a lot of her appearances in like the mini series of Death, just like one issues. Let's talk about her costume design, as she wears a very, not really bland costume, but not really anything special, except when you get to her jewelry. She wears an ankh. The ankh is meant to symbolize life. The ankh on her chain is meant to symbolize life in Egyptian lore, which is pretty interesting when you think about it. Death as a character is wearing the symbol of life. Isn't that strange? But it makes sense, as Death herself is meant to show what it means to have life. Again, Death is one of the few incarnations of the character in media who is shown to have an understanding not just of death itself, but of life, about humanity, about how it feels to die. I mean, in Death, The High Cost of Living, we walk the same walk she takes, the same 24 hours she has, and at the end of the series, we see as that version of Death dies. Death meets Death, and at the ending, Death even asks her, "Did you enjoy it? Was it worth it? What did it mean? What did it cost?" And eventually Death just does say she doesn't know, but she hopes that what she got out of it was enough. And I think that's such a lovely thought, that like Death understands what it means to have such a limited time on this planet, as Death is the only one of the Endless to realize that they are not endless. I mean, Death even takes 2 of them at some point. Yes, Death takes 2 of her siblings at some point in the series. We'll be talking about that more later on, but I don't really want to get into spoilers today. But she takes 2 of her family members, showing that even the Endless aren't so endless. She's been there for the Big Bang, for every supernova, for every single event in the world. Again, some say that she knows the future and the past, but truly, she isn't Destiny. She doesn't know the future and the past. She doesn't know how time is going to be written, but it doesn't matter. From her own words, she doesn't need to know the future and the past. When the future happens, it's just her. And this is endless concept again. Throughout all medias, we see as the Grim Reaper reaps, but we see Death as this sort of calming presence. And throughout the series, we look and we see how she comes and helps people, how she sits down with them. For her first appearance, Sound of Her Wings, we are shown as Death just basically does her job. That's the whole issue. She just takes people and she explains to them. Some of them are very much against the idea that Death is going to take them at all. Some of them try to fight against it. Some of them try to hide and run and scream at her. But in the end, she just explains to them that this is her job, that this is what she's supposed to do. And they all just sort of accept it, that they just all sort of just sit there and be like, okay, I understand this is your job, that this is what you're supposed to do, and that wherever I'm going, I'm glad that I'm with you. And I think that's just beautiful. We are born, we get a conversation with Death. We never remember it, we will never remember it, but in the beginning, we meet Death. We meet her, she holds our hand, she explains what this is going to all be. And we live our lives however we live them. And at the end, we see her one last time. We talk to her, we ask her if it was all worth it, that it meant something. And in the end, she just says, you got what anyone got. You got a lifetime. That's kind of where I want to end off the video. Again, Death of the Endless is such a personal character to me, as I have lost people in my life, but through Neil Gaiman's depiction of the Sandman, I was able to come to more of an acceptance of that loss and how to move on from it, as, again, as I said, as Death is this character who you would hope comes to meet you at the end. And seeing that made me so calm about the subject, and made me so more accepting of what was going to happen. And I do suggest anyone who is going through something like that, read Sound of Her Wings, because it's just a perfect novel and explains everything you need to know about death and the subject of death and exactly where to accept. For most of the Sandman community, they say that this one is the best issue out of the entire series, and I have to agree, as this issue changed my entire understanding of how I feel about death. Hell, even this version of Death is actually my top favorite Death iteration in all of history, as for this video I had to do a bit of research on different versions of Death, different types of death. I'm planning on doing a video in the future where I talk about the many interpretations of death, not only in media and literature, but also in religion and cultures, how there are different depictions of death. And again, because of course, the Endless are just the ideas of those concepts. They're not personifications, they are just the concepts themselves. I think that's just really cool and unique. Again, if you haven't read The Sandman for yourself, it's a wonderful novel. There's an audiobook for it. Again, there's a whole comic book run that you can find online for free. And of course, actually for this one, I didn't get to mention it for Destiny's video, but for this one, Netflix does have season 1 of The Sandman on there, where Death does make her appearance. With all that being said, again, next Sunday, we will be discussing the main man himself, Dream of the Endless, the actual main character of the Sandman series. I'm so excited to cover him as well. There's a lot to cover with that character. So I'm very excited to make that one. But if you guys enjoyed it, please come back. Again, next Sunday we'll be discussing Dream of the Endless. But with all that being said, thank you and good night.